and a lot to get to in college football. We do that now with our buddy Brandon Marcello.
As we go to Brandon, how far away are we from SEC Media Days?
SEC Media Days, Brown, we are a cool 144 days away.
Because the SEC has just announced their schedule for that. So
wow.
144 days out, Chuck Dunlap getting after it. Brandon Marcello is with us now on the JohnstonRVCenter.com hotline. I only say it a million times a day. Don't know why I stumbled there. Brandon, welcome in. How are you today?
Doing well, guys. How are you?
Doing awesome. Thanks so much for being on with us. You can see Brandon at B Marcello, 24/7 Sports. Read his stuff, watch his videos, support him, like everything he does. We were just talking about Mike Bobo at the end of the last hour. And I mean, I guess the way I look at it is if Georgia needed 48, 49 points a game to win 10 games, I might be worried about Mike Bobo. That is not what Georgia needs. I don't think Mike Bobo is the best offensive coordinator in the country, but I'm not certain Georgia has to have that.
No, you're right. And listen, talent seems to hide any inadequacies as a play caller. And I don't think Mike Bobo is a bad play caller. I think he's above average, so to speak. Though every time I mean, Georgia fans have ways of remembering him previously. And my way of remembering him most recently as a play caller was him calling a fade near the end zone when Auburn was facing Penn State. And it was just a terrible play call, and Auburn lost the game as a result. So having said that, Georgia's going to have immense talent there. They're just absolutely loaded, and the hire just made sense. I think a lot of us in the industry knew that, if Todd Monken ended up going to the NFL, that was most likely the situation that was going to happen, and certainly enough, Mike Bobo did that. And listen, Mike Bobo had interest from other programs here in this offseason, so Georgia was the best job, obviously, for him, and it'd be interesting to see how it all works out because, I think a lot of us just assume Georgia is going to be the top dog once again in the SEC this year, but replacing the quarterback, I don't care how good the quarterback is behind the starter, like with Stetson Bennett, there's always some maneuvering that has to happen there, some adjustments. And how does Mike Bobo handle that?
We came across an article this week we talked about on the show, and it went conference to conference, and it talked about coaches that are on the hot seat, keep an eye on, or might retire. And when it came to these two coaches, it was keep an eye on both, one from the SEC and one from the Big 12. But if I asked you better chance of getting fired after this season in the state of Texas, Jimbo Fisher or Steve Sarkisian?
I'd put them on equal footing right now, but
And I'll just give you a hypothetical. If both went 6-6, what happens?
They might both get fired. Be honest, because I think things get ramped up quite a bit faster for Texas now with them joining the SEC a year early. Do you want to make that move before you join the SEC and start fresh as soon as you start in the SEC in 24, or do you want to let Steve Sarkisian try to prove himself in the first year in the SEC and then make a change going into year 2 or year 3 in the SEC if there's problems there? And with Jimbo, everybody talks about the buyout and all that. Buyout's not going to matter. If Texas A&M goes 6-6 this season, we're going to be sitting there talking like, okay, are they going to fire him? Are they going to just pay up and do this? Are they going to end up doing it? Because there's still a lot of pressure on A&M too, obviously just to win with this recruiting classes they've had, but also your rival Texas has joined the same conference as you, and you cannot lose any momentum. And I think certainly that they would make a change there. I think with Texas joining the SEC so quickly now that it's going to amp up the pressure on both coaches going into this season, and nothing would shock me there. As you said, just going 500, even at Texas, considering it's early in Sarkisian's career there's a lot more at stake right now than a typical Texas offseason going into 2024 because you're joining the SEC.
See, that's why I love that beautiful brain of yours, Marcello. That was what I was going to ask you, because we always talk about the pressure of Texas and Oklahoma coming into this league. But my goodness, Texas A&M, who has spent most of their life being the little brother, here comes Big Brother into the league now, and you've had the advantage over the last big part of since you've been in the SEC, and now you've got to be better than them in the same conference again. I think there's even more pressure on Texas A&M. Beautiful, beautiful mind, man. That's amazing.
Well, and I'll say this too. I appreciate that, by the way. But I'll say this: like, if you go back through history, since A&M has joined the SEC, legitimately, like, it is flipped and flopped to the other side for A&M's advantage in the amount of blue chip recruits they get from the state of Texas. Texas used to dominate that. Now A&M has been dominating that since they joined the SEC, and just by design, with Texas and OU joining the SEC, that number is going to start evening out, if not flip over to the other side once again once they join. There's a lot of reasons why A&M was against the idea of Texas joining the league, but that's really paramount to me. It all starts with recruiting. It's the lifeblood of everything, and A&M struck gold and hit oil, as they would say there, by being able to join the SEC and capitalize on recruiting. I'm not sure Texas has capitalized on the recruiting so far just because they're joining the SEC, but the team that has is OU. They are killing it on the recruiting trail. I'm not sure that's getting enough notice right now. They just signed one of their better recruiting classes, in my opinion, in their modern era here. And they're loading up in the trenches, which is what they've got to do to prepare for the SEC. Texas has been very, very good, top 5, top 10, but OU's the team that's joined the SEC that's made that big jump you would expect with that SEC brand like A&M did a decade ago.
I will back off a little bit of my praise for you before you file the restraining order there. I'll ask you this question. We brought it up yesterday earlier in our show, and we got more details last night and earlier this morning. But we talked about it yesterday when we saw that Marcus Freeman at Notre Dame wanted to hire this OC at UT and bring him at Utah and then bring him to South Bend. But they were scared away by a small $2.8 million buyout at Utah, which is surprising to me that Notre Dame would be scared of letting their guy hire the guy that he wants to have as the OC. What does that tell you about Notre Dame and maybe long-term for Marcus Freeman there?
It's one of two things. Maybe it's both. One, who did not do their research in figuring out that Andy Ludwig buyout was that large? Secondly, my understanding is that they wanted to hire Andy Ludwig and also bring in the offensive line coach from Utah, and their combined buyout was approaching $4 million. That's what really kind of went, whoa, we can't do that. But secondly, the issue here is, where is the communication between the administration and Marcus Freeman? Why are they not behind him the entire way and going, yes, go pursue this guy. We've got the money. It'll be all set up. And by the way, go out to a hockey game in public for you to be photographed with the guy. And instead of hiring Andy Ludwig, you hire the guy that's seated on the other side of you, who's already on your staff as your tight ends coach. So it's there's some issues there. I wouldn't say necessarily maybe Notre Dame won't pay the money, but the idea that, one, they didn't know about it, or two, Marcus Freeman just assumed that he would be able to pay for it and the administration didn't communicate that to them, or there was some breakdown in communication there, that has to be frustrating. And also, it's a big concern going in the future because, as you said, if you're not aligned with just staffing and being able to support your coach to go hire who he wants, then goodness gracious, what are things going to look like in a couple of years if your team is near 500, or heck, goodness, we're so used to Notre Dame winning 10 games a year or more. What if they're winning 8 games? Is that good enough? That worries me about the administration.
To your point, Brian Kelly, if he wanted the guy at LSU, the former Notre Dame coach, he could have him. Everybody had been like, okay, is that who you want? Okay, no problem, right? That's one reason why he probably left South Bend.
You're exactly right. I think that going into the future, Marcus Freeman and his staff have done a great job with recruiting. And in my opinion, this past season, we all got hung up on those first 2 weeks, and that loss to Marshall was atrocious. The loss to Ohio State, in retrospect, wasn't all that bad, considering they were in the game going into the fourth quarter in a defensive battle. But the coaches there adjusted. They realized the offense wasn't quite what they thought it was going to be. They leaned on the defense. They changed their playing style a little bit, and they won all those games in a row and did so very well in an impressive fashion and got to a good bowl game. I thought the coaching was great. And then you get on the off season and You're losing staffers, and then you're very publicly swinging and missing on guys that they shouldn't have swung and missed on. Listen, Andy Ludwig wants to stay at Utah, but when Notre Dame came open, he wanted it. He flew up to South Bend. The idea was he was going to take the job. If we're to fall apart this publicly is just embarrassing, not just for Notre Dame, but also for Andy Ludwig at Utah. I know a lot of people say it's a big win for Utah, but it's embarrassing that your longtime offensive coordinator is out there publicly flirting with another university and then has to come back just because they didn't want to pay that buyout.
Brandon Marcello is with us on the JohnstonRVCenter.com hotline, at bmarcello on Twitter, 24/7 Sports. Read his stuff, his videos, support Brandon, like everything he does there, at bmarcello. He's with us on the JohnstonRVCenter.com hotline. All right, so when we saw Georgia cancel their series with Oklahoma, we were told it's because of future SEC scheduling. Michigan and UCLA did the same because of Big Ten scheduling. But I am told when I see Ohio State cancel their series against Washington, I shouldn't read anything into that. Are you telling me, Brandon, I shouldn't read anything into that?
You know, as far as maybe Washington joining the
joining the Big Ten,
yeah. Don't read anything into that.
Okay, I will not.
That's not happening.
Okay. Well, my antenna was up just because we had seen those other two. Yeah.
I was with you too when I got that release yesterday, and then that the quote from the Washington AD, I was all like, "Wow, really coming out and guns blazing on this," because it was just like, "Hey, we were really looking forward to this. We wanted to play it, and this is a disappointment to us." That showed to me right there, Washington knows they're not going to be in the Big Ten with even an opportunity to be able to play Ohio State. And I'll say this in the background there at Ohio State, the presidents, the chancellors, they're the ones who tell the commissioner what to do, but Kevin Warren kind of was able to go against the grain sometimes there. And Kevin Warren was open to, let's expand even further beyond USC and UCLA. Now that he's gone, that vacuum of power has been filled by the presidents and chancellors, and they do not want to expand further. So my feeling is that because they're going to have input, obviously, the primary input on who they hire as commissioner there, they're going to bring in a commissioner that's not going to want to push that ball down the road in the immediate future as far as further expansion. So I think any rumblings you hear or people speculating that maybe some more Pac-12 teams, Washington, Oregon specifically, might be joining the Big Ten in the future, I just don't see that happening at all now that Kevin Warren's gone.
A question I never thought we would ask: better next 3 years, Billy Napier or Shane Beamer?
Wow. And Brandon has to think, and he goes Shane Beamer.
And I'll say this: I think it's Shane Beamer at another school.
Oh.
I think he's going to get a bigger job if they are very successful this year. I mean, I'm not saying I know what he wants to do, but if he was to win 9 or 10 games this year at South Carolina, which I think they're capable of doing, because as you mentioned, Billy Napier, Florida's going to still be kind of down this year. In that East, and before divisions go away in the SEC, South Carolina's got an opportunity here to climb up further at the SEC East standings. I think he might have his opportunity to leave for a bigger Power 5 gig. South Carolina fans don't want to hear that because they believe that they should be contending for championships, but the history shows you that even in their greatest years under Lou Holtz and, of course, Steve Spurrier in the SEC, at best you're going to make the SEC championship game, and as we saw against Auburn and others, you're going to get blown out. So you're going to lose. So Shane Beamer, if he wants to strike it while it's hot here in the next couple of years, is going to do it. And I think in the next 3 years, he'll have a better record and have more success than Billy Napier. Florida's going to have to be patient with Billy Napier, but will they? Because the fans there are all over him already. And at some point, that'll start bleeding into the boosters and obviously the admin there. And you wonder about the admin there, too. I love Scott Strickland as the AD there, but the fans are really pushing against all this. And if they have another bad year, that starts to bleed into a lot of other facets and other parts of that building there.
Especially with what rival Georgia is doing. And here comes Florida State getting better as well. Before you go, Ken Wesenhunt, now part of the analyst room, not at Penn State anymore, in Tuscaloosa. What do you think that means for Tommy Rees, maybe having a mentor there with so many years of experience calling plays in the NFL?
Yeah, I think that's big for them. Listen, Tommy Rees is obviously the youngest guy on the staff. He's going to be well, he is younger than analysts on the staff, including Ken Wisenhunt. But I think, listen, it's just a lot of programs are doing this. Alabama's been doing it for probably before everybody else and getting these experienced former coordinators, head coaches in as analysts. And you're even seeing it at some smaller programs. I see these. I follow a coaching carousel. I'm always talking to people every day in the industry about it, and I'm always surprised to hear kind of the names that are serving as analysts or as consultants. And not surprising to see that. But I think what the thing to really read into that there is that he already had a job at Penn State, and now he's going to Alabama to kind of do the same thing. Why would you do that? One, to work for Saban, but secondly, he's probably going to have quite a bit more input at Alabama than he was at Penn State. And listen, I think Tommy Rees is a bright young offensive mind, but he is going to need some help there in getting things going. And the thing I think also gets lost in all this, and I think the local listeners there in Birmingham and Tuscaloosa and across the state know this, is that Nick Saban's offense is his offense. He's developed this over the years and has taken ideas from others like every other coach, and they have their own terminology, their own language. He's not getting rid of that. He's not telling Tommy Rees to come in and just blow the thing up. He wants him to run his system. And I think bringing in Ken Wisenhunt kind of further strengthens the idea of, all right, I need experienced minds to figure out a way to work within my own system.
Go follow Brandon on Twitter at @BMarcello. Follow him everywhere on social media at 247sports.com for all of his work there. Brandon, we greatly appreciate the time as always. Thank you so much.
All right. See you guys. Appreciate it.
All right, buddy. Take care. Brandon with us on the JohnstonRVCenter.com hotline.